Hello. Good evening, everybody. Councillors, Chief Executive of Dublin City Council, Owen Keegan, members of the German community and readers, Guten Abend. We're not at the Eurovision tonight, just to let you know. My name is Anne-Marie Kelly. I'm Director of Dublin UNESCO City of Literature, and I would like to extend a welcome to you all in person and online to this event. And it's featuring the winners of the Dublin Literary Award on this lovely evening at the International Festival of Literature in Dublin. This event is the end of a journey which started with seeking nominations from libraries in 31 countries in the world, to a shortlisting of 6 titles, to a final selection of 1 book. The Dublin Literary Award, sponsored by Dublin City Council, awards excellence in world literature, and the award is for a single work of fiction in English or translated into English, selected by an international panel of judges, chaired by the Seamus Heaney Professor of Irish Writing, Chris Marash of Trinity College, Dublin. And I'd like to thank all the judges again involved in this process. Arunava Sinha, the Bengali translator, Marie Hamé from France, Gabriel Jibadamosi, UK poet and writer, Sarah Moss, UK author, Duran Nigrifa, Irish poet and writer. Yesterday, at a ceremony here, Martzan, Mon Amour, by author Katja Oskamp, translated into English by Jo Heinrich, and published by a small publishing house in the UK, Pyrene Press, was declared the winner. Katja Oskamp and Jo Heinrich will be interviewed now by RTE broadcaster Rick O'Shea, who is an early champion of the book and chose it for the online Rick O'Shea Book Club. Rachel McNicholl will provide translation, and please put your hands now together and welcome the 2023 Dublin Literary Award winners.
Round of applause. Hello, can you hear me? Oh, you can hear me. Okay, this is great. Good. Good evening. Welcome along to the event. It's lovely to see that so many people have chosen to turn up at an opportunity where you could be out having fun, you could be at the bar, you could be out enjoying the sunshine, and instead you've chosen to come in and listen to our wonderful award winners this year. We do have Rachel is here with us as a translator, because I speak very, very fast, and in the eventuality that stuff just goes completely off the edge, that means she'll be assisting Katja in the eventuality of that. And Jo as well, possibly, because who knows, I could end up...
No, I can't work fast enough. I have to get Google out, and I have to get the thesaurus out, and if I try to interpret, sometimes I'm talking the wrong language to the wrong person. Sometimes French words come out. You never know what will happen, so I'm not doing it tonight.
A multiple language event might have been really interesting. People could have just, played along.
No, they wouldn't have understood.
No. I am, to be honest with you, I was so thrilled when I was asked to do this event, because I had a very early proof of Martzan Mon Amour, which was suggested to me by the wonderful Ronan Hession, the author of Leonard and Hungry Paul and Panenka, because he knew the kind of books that I liked, and he knew that it's very hard to find books like Martzan Mon Amour, and so he virtually pressed it into my hands. Tell me a little bit about, because I was here for the ceremony yesterday for the announcement, tell me about, after all of that excitement, what has the last couple of days in Dublin been like for both of you?
Who shall start?
Ich darf antworten.
Oh.
Ja, ich habe die Frage verstanden. Wie die letzten Tage hier waren, also ich habe schon gesagt, für mich ist es so, als wäre ich schon 3 Monate hier, weil es sind eigentlich nur 3 Tage gewesen, aber es war so voller Erlebnisse, voller Eindrücke, und ich bin so begeistert von der Gastfreundschaft und von der professionellen Organisation dieses Festivals und dieser Ereignisse, dieser Veranstaltung, und trotzdem ist niemand verklemmt. Das finde ich am besten. Alle sind fröhlich und ganz normal und alles klappt. Ich bin begeistert.
Okay, I'm going to try and translate that. Katja was saying she's thrilled to be here. She was here for 3 days. It feels like 3 months. She's had such a wonderful time, so many wonderful experiences, so many great impressions. Everybody's been so friendly. The hospitality has been wonderful. Nobody has been stiff or stuck up. And did I forget anything?
Das war schon
I
alles.
think she's had a great time.
Ja.
I'm not sure whether 3 days feeling like 3 months is a good thing or a bad thing.
Super, super.
Okay, Jo, how about for you?
I've been explaining it. You know, there's a little emoji where there's an exploding head, there's a little happy little face, and there's a brain that just goes boom. And that's been my experience every 10 minutes or so. The little newbie translator me, to be here in the midst of all this has been absolutely mind-blowing and wonderful. Thank you, everybody.
I want to take you slightly back and ask you about the moment that you both found out that you had won, because it's a few weeks ago now. Did you get a phone call? Did you get what were the feelings like when you got somebody contacting you to say it's you? Katja.
I was going to say, shall I start because I knew and then I told you. So
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You found out first.
I found out first
Okay.
because I speak English, and that's the way I kind of translate. So I'd been at the London Book Fair, had been on for a few days, and I'd been there for a couple of days. And Stella from Pairini, the publisher, we sort of arranged that we must meet up at some point. And I actually hadn't caught up with her because it's enormous. I got the train home, and within about half an hour, and I was really tired, there was a little message saying, "Are you still at LBF? I have news." And I didn't know who it was, but I thought, news from the LBF, it's going to be something good, isn't it? It's going to be a new book, it's going to be something. So I rang this number and I was like, who is this? And Stella, because it was confidential and she was surrounded by hundreds of people, couldn't say what the news was. So we were talking in sort of code. You know that thing, you know the news that you think it's going to be. Well, that's happened. And it was like, okay.
That's not helpful. That could have been anything.
No, because there was only one bit of news that it could ever have been. So yeah. And then I got off the phone and burst into tears. And then once I got myself together, I emailed Katja and said, "You're not going to believe this. I can't believe this, but we've only gone and won."
Und ich war in dem Moment, also ich war an diesem Abend in Berlin am Potsdamer Platz in einem Restaurant mit meinem Freund. Und wir haben da gegessen und dann bin ich auf die Toilette gegangen und habe meine E-Mails angeguckt und habe das von Jo gesehen und dachte, hä? Und dann habe ich ihr sofort zurückgeschrieben vom Klo, vom Potsdamer Platz. Und weil ich konnte es nicht glauben. Ich dachte, sie veralbert mich. Und dann hat es aber gestimmt. Und dann bin ich zurück vom Klo in das Restaurant, in diesen Gastraum. Und dann haben wir für 100 € Schnaps getrunken.
Sorry, you've got to wait for that, haven't you?
So how Katja got the news was she saw Jo's email when she was in the ladies' room in the loos of a restaurant on Potsdamer Platz where she was with her partner and friends. And she just checked her email and there's this message from Jo with the good news. So she went back outside into the restaurant and they drank 100 € worth of schnapps.
I have two thoughts on this. That's the perfect way to celebrate. And also, this is the strangest event I've ever done, in that obviously, those of you who speak German in the audience are about 20 seconds ahead of me. This is going to be really interesting as we go on in this. It's that strange thing of though, you find yourself laughing one way or the other, even though you don't necessarily understand the joke or the punchline, because somebody else is laughing. Okay, I'm going to go slightly further back, and Katja, maybe tell us about becoming a writer in the first place, about your career as a writer.
Wie meine Schriftstellerarbeit begonnen hat das jetzt gefragt? Wie ich zum Schreiben gekommen bin. Ach so, ja. Ich war erst am Theater als junge Frau und habe dort als Dramaturgin gearbeitet. Und dann habe ich ein Kind bekommen und es war nicht so einfach, das Theater mit dem Kind zu vereinbaren. Denn wir wissen, am Theater ist es immer dunkel, egal zu welcher Tageszeit. Und man will kein Kind großziehen, was nie die Sonne sieht. Deswegen habe ich die Arbeit dann dort beendet und habe am Literaturinstitut in Leipzig studiert. Noch erstmal? Ja.
Okay, so Katja was working in theatre in Leipzig as a dramaturg, which is kind of like the script and directorial development side of things, and then she had a child, and she didn't really want the child to grow up in the dark, because it's always dark in the theatre. And so she gave up her work with the theatre and went to study at the Leipzig Literature Institute.
So fing es an.
And after that, you started writing, and then, as you told in your speech yesterday, you eventually reached a point where you thought that you'd reached a block and that your writing wasn't working for you anymore.
Ich habe dann angefangen, Bücher zu schreiben und habe die auch veröffentlicht und die waren auch mäßig erfolgreich, also ich konnte nicht klagen. Und dann, wie gesagt, nach 15 Jahren hatte ich ein Manuskript fertig geschrieben und es ließ sich nicht verkaufen. Die Agentur hat keinen Verlag gefunden. Und dann kam noch, das Kind, von dem ich eben gesprochen habe, war plötzlich auch schon groß und verließ das Haus. Und all diese Sachen haben mich eben in eine Dreifachkrise gestürzt. Ich hatte auch noch einen Mann, der sehr krank war. Also musste ich diesen Mann pflegen. Das Kind war groß und das Manuskript wollte niemand drucken. Das waren 3 Problemfelder, die mich dazu gebracht haben, der Schreiberei den Rücken zu kehren und durch viele Zufälle mich der Fußpflege zuzuwenden.
Okay, I'm trying to remember the sequence of things. So, the child that she had mentioned earlier on had grown up and left home. Her writing career, she had a few books that had done fairly well, but with her latest book, her agent just couldn't find a publisher for it. Loads of rejections, and also her husband was very ill, so she did, triple crisis, and just sort of turned her back on writing, turned away from writing, kind of gave up on it for those three reasons, really.
And Jo, I want to ask you about translation, because this is your first novel translation. How do you get to a point where you reach, before you tell me the story, because I do want you to tell me the story about how you approached Katja in the first place, but just tell me maybe a little bit about you before that.
Well, I had a degree from when people are young and do their degrees. I had a degree in French and German and a little bit of Swedish that I kind of forgot about, and I did lots of other jobs. I had my children quite late in life, and I ended up giving up work to look after them. And then we I kind of got to that point, they were 8 or 7 or something, and I was messing around doing all kinds of other things. I made a bit of art, I used to do this and do that, and my book club, my lovely book club back home, hello, if anyone's watching, they took me out and we had a bit too much wine. There are some husbands that call us the wine club, not the book club. And they told me to stop messing around and actually go and do something with my life instead of wasting my time. So that kind of stuck, and I ended up doing an MA in translation. Has my sound gone quiet?
Can we still hear you? Yeah, I can still hear you.
Yeah, okay.
Well, admittedly, I'm
Yeah.
sitting here, so
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
still hear you.
It just sounded like it was quiet.
Can everybody still hear Jo? Just check.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
And then, so tell me about how you came across the book initially, and then, because it's a really unusual way of getting yourself the gig.
Yes. So I'd been doing a bit of commercial translation. Back then, it was even foot-related. Back then, I was doing shoe brochures and articles about what to wear with your new boots and things like that.
Okay.
But I really fancied something literary. And I'd read an article that said that a good way to start out is to get a short story and to get it in a magazine or something. And there was a certain online retailer that said that Martha Mon Amour was a book of short stories. So I thought I'd pick one and have a go. but they're all too good. You couldn't just pick one. So I thought I'd give it a go. I kind of wrote to Stella, and I hear these stories that translators write and write and write to publishers for years on end and never hear a response, never get anywhere. This was the second email I ever sent to a publisher, and here I am now. And it should never have happened. It's remarkable.
Because for those people who weren't here yesterday, that first email didn't really go very well, did it?
Yes. I was a bit nervous, and I attached the wrong file. I attached the German version, and why she didn't think, well, that person's a bloody idiot. I'm not going to. I'm not going to write back to her. She said, have you got an English version for me within 10 minutes? And I had, of course. So yeah, here we are.
Katja, tell us about Marzahn itself, about the place. You evoke it incredibly within the book and the people who live there, but maybe tell us a little bit about what Marzahn is like.
Marzahn hatte lange und hat auch immer noch einen schlechten Ruf, vor allen Dingen bei Leuten, die noch nie dort waren. Das ist so ein bisschen Vorstadt und nicht viel Geld und Plattenbau. Es wird mit Neonazis in Verbindung gebracht und mit zerstochenen Autoreifen und viel Müll, also ein Problembezirk. Und es wird über Marzahn wird oft sehr abfällig gesprochen und auch in den Medien berichtet. Für mich ist Marzahn natürlich der Ort des großen Glücks. Und als ich dort anfing zu arbeiten, habe ich eben festgestellt, wie gerne ich jede Woche dorthin fahre und fühlte also ich wollte auch gerne mitteilen, dass es dort nicht so ist, wie in den Zeitungen oder in den Medien überhaupt immer behauptet wird. Und das habe ich versucht in dem Buch darzustellen. Es ist eben ganz normal in Marzahn. Erstmal, ja.
There was something I forgot to say actually from the previous question that Katja answered, which was that after she had this triple crisis, that through a series of coincidences, she became a chiropodist or trained as a chiropodist, because that's important for the story. The question, Rick's question about Marzahn, Katja was saying Marzahn has always had and still has a bad reputation of being sort of a suburban projects, I suppose you could call it, like the banlieue. It's these prefab slab concrete tower blocks. People don't have a lot of money. There's burnt out cars and rubbish. But Katja wanted to portray its and also the people who think it's and give it a bad reputation usually have never been there. And Katja wanted to give it show its better sides, the wonderful people who live there, the nice areas, the characters, right? So they all appear in the book.
Because, and it's why I asked the question for those people who've just read the book but know nothing about Marzahn beyond it. That's what we take from the book. We take from the book these wonderful people, that there's a great sense of community, that none of any of that appears there. It was a choice on your part to emphasize those parts of Marzahn.
Es ist mir passiert, durch die Arbeit dort und durch mein Wiedererkennen der Kunden auch, denn ich bin selber auch in so einem Plattenbau groß geworden, allerdings nicht in Marzahn, sondern in Prenzlauer Berg. Das ist ein zentralerer Stadtteil von Berlin. Ich fühlte mich in Marzahn sofort zu Hause und es ist im Schreiben wie passiert, dass ich das zu einem schönen, lebenswerten und fröhlichen Ort gemacht habe, weil er mir eben so begegnet ist. Es war sozusagen gar keine Absicht dahinter.
So, Katja was saying when she started to work in Marzahn, she actually immediately felt at home there. Partly because she had grown up in a similar type of tower block area in Prenzlauer Berg, which is a district in Berlin closer to the center, but similar design. So she wanted to describe it as she found it, which was, with the positives. It wasn't a deliberate attempt to put a positive spin on something. It was just how she found it. I think I've forgotten something. But
We can come back to it. I'm interested that we have slightly jumped over you becoming a chiropodist. So how do you go from being a dramaturg and somebody who works in theatre and a published novelist to where is that right-hand turn? How did you end up finding yourself becoming a chiropodist? What led you there?
Das waren viele, viele Zufälle. Ich war in einem Sportstudio, weil wir Frauen im mittleren Alter sollen ja Sport treiben. Und so habe ich das auch gemacht. Und dort habe ich eine Frau kennengelernt, die hatte sich gerade selbstständig gemacht und dieses Kosmetikstudio eröffnet. Und deren Kundin wurde ich und fuhr nach Marzahn, um mich von ihr behandeln zu lassen. Und dann habe ich ihr irgendwann von meinen Lebensproblemen und Schwierigkeiten erzählt. Und dann hat diese Frau, im Buch heißt sie Tiffy, da ist es auch beschrieben, zu mir gesagt, ich brauche eine Fußpflegerin. Wir haben so viele alte Leute, du kannst hier anfangen sofort. Und normalerweise lacht man bei sowas und sagt, nein, ich bin noch Schriftsteller, ich kann noch keine Fußpflegerin werden. Und ich habe einfach Ja gesagt und gedacht, mal sehen, was passiert. Das ist jetzt wahrscheinlich ein großes Experiment.
So how Katja became a chiropodist was a whole series of coincidences, but mainly she was going to a gym, and a friend of hers who also went to the gym had opened a beauty salon in Marzahn, and Katja went to her beauty salon in Marzahn and started telling her about her problems and life and stuff, and then her friend said, well, why don't you train, or why don't you become a chiropodist? I could really do with one. There are a lot of old people living in this area. I have a lot of older clients. I could really do with a chiropodist. And Katja, instead of sort of saying, what? I'm a writer, I couldn't possibly become a chiropodist, said, why not? And went and did the training and started the job.
Jo, in terms of translate, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of translating the book, there's a couple of things I wanted to ask you about. One of which was, I've seen you talk about it before, about the kind of peculiarities of Berlin dialect that you found yourself working your way through, but also maybe talk a little bit about the relationship between you and Katja, because frequently people who translate other people's novels, they sometimes rarely have any contact with them, sometimes never have any contact with them. Obviously, your relationship is very, very different.
We've been talking about this today because Katja's book was translated into Spanish and into Swedish, and she's never heard from the translators at all. But I had questions. There were things that I couldn't understand, that all the characters talk with the Berlin dialects, and some of it I could work out. Some of it reads a little tiny bit like Dutch, and I've done a tiny bit of Dutch. But there were some words, I can't remember, what was it, herumnippeln?
Rumgenippelt, ja.
Yeah. I had no idea, so...
I still don't.
It means to sip something really, really slowly. So if you've got a bottle of wine, make it last all night by drinking little sips.
Okay.
Herumgenippelt. If ever you're in Berlin, you can give it a go. So yeah, I had to ask all kinds of little questions like this.
Und sie hat mir so einen richtigen schönen Fragenkatalog geschrieben, mehrmals, und ich habe so ganz schön ordentlich geantwortet. Das war eigentlich, hat Spaß gemacht, auch weil man selber ja auch noch mal über die Worte nachdenkt und über den Sinn. Das war eigentlich ein langer Austausch. Ne? Und jetzt sind ja Jo und ich, seit wir hier in Dublin sind, eigentlich verheiratet.
So Katja was saying that Jo would send her a really sort of neat list of questions, and then she would answer them all systematically, and it made her think as well, think a bit more closely about the words herself. And this went on for a long exchange of questions, which they really enjoyed, and so much so that they've got to know each other so well through these emails. And now in Dublin, she feels like they're almost married.
Katja, at what point then, you have started your new job, you were working as a chiropodist, there must be a stage or a moment when your writer brain goes, there's something happening here, and I might be able to do something with this.
Das hat eine Weile gedauert, weil man ist ja erstmal Anfänger, auch als Fußpflegerin. Und zuerst muss man sich bemühen, dass man nicht die Füße der Kundschaft blutig schneidet. Und wenn man das gelernt hat, dann kann man den Blick auch wieder auf andere Dinge richten. Mir ist schon sehr bald aufgefallen, dass ich wunderbare Kunden habe mit wunderbaren Geschichten und ich musste auch so viel lachen über sie. Wahrscheinlich ist es eine Berufskrankheit, dass man immer überall alles beobachtet und damit habe ich auch nicht aufgehört. Aber bis ich darüber schreiben konnte, sind über 2 Jahre vergangen.
At the beginning, Katja was saying she was new to the job, barely qualified, and so she had to really concentrate on people's feet so that she didn't cut them and end up with blood all over the place. So she didn't have time to, but at the same time, it's kind of like an occupational hazard that you're constantly observing. You know, as a writer, you're always observing and noting things. And also all of these clients had just wonderful stories. And so it took about 2 years, but after about 2 years, she began to think more about the stories and the people and less about cutting their toes.
Und ich musste die Kunden ja auch wirklich erst kennenlernen. Also die Leute, über die ich geschrieben habe, wenn man die nur einmal trifft, kann man ihre Geschichte nicht aufschreiben. Man muss sie regelmäßig wiedersehen und so eine Art familiäres Verhältnis auch aufbauen.
It was about building a relationship as well and getting to know people. You couldn't just, hear their story once and say, right, I have this story. You get to know them, create an intimate relationship, and that takes time.
I'm interested in that. Obviously, Marzahn Mon Amour is a work of fiction, but it has very close parallels to what you were going through at the time and your life and where you were working and the people you met. Can you maybe tell me a little bit about changes that you felt you had to make to certain parts of stories because you were basing them on your real clients and you maybe felt that they might not want to read about themselves? What was that like? Did you have to be very careful when you were writing those stories?
Also es ist schon alles im Grunde genommen so geschehen, aber meine Arbeit bestand vor allem darin, alles, was langweilig ist, wegzulassen. Und das ist ja auch viel in jedem Leben. Ich habe die Namen geändert und ich habe manchmal auch aus 2 Personen eine gemacht oder eine Eigenschaft von einer 5., einer 7. Person gegeben. Das ist das Fiktionale daran. Aber also den Geist von Marzahn und den Geist dieses Studios und auch meine Position, das habe ich schon so abgeschrieben. Und vor allem ist es ja so, dass die besten Sachen, die lustigsten, die kann man sich ja nicht ausdenken. Die haben die Kunden mir geschenkt.
She's saying to some extent you have to leave things out. You leave out the boring things in life. There are a lot of boring things in general. So, but the stories are sometimes composite stories, or she's taken a detail from one character and details from another client, and they come into the stories. But the funny aspects are all there. The funny stories were true. And really, what she was trying to do is give the spirit of Marzahn and the essence of that, and that the stories, particularly the funny stories, were like a gift to her from the clients.
These stories are all wonderful. They're all incredible. They are stories of real everyday life and real normal people as they go about their lives and the stories of their lives. Is that something that's important to you as a writer?
Das ist sehr wichtig. Das ist auch etwas, was ich herausgefunden habe wegen der Vorurteile gegenüber Marzahn. In dem Moment, wo die Leute krank sind oder alt sind oder einsam sind oder ökonomische Probleme haben oder ihnen auch nur die Füße wehtun, sind sie eben überall gleich. Und es ist egal, ob sie in Marzahn oder in Charlottenburg oder in, was weiß ich, auf irgendeiner Insel wohnen. Es ist dann eben das, was alle verbindet und es sind auch die Fragen, die alle verbinden. Insofern ist es einerseits ein Buch über die speziellen ostdeutschen Biografien und Befindlichkeiten und auch Verletzungen und andererseits ist es eben ein Buch über jeden, der Füße hat.
Okay, so I'll translate the last bit first. In a way, it's a book about everyone who has a pair of feet, because it's one of the things Katja learned, partly because of the prejudices about Marzahn, was that if you're old or vulnerable or ill, you're treated the same, equally badly, no matter whether you're rich or poor, whether you're in Charlottenburg or Marzahn or on an island. And so she was trying to capture the sort of universal stories. I think I forgot the bit in the middle.
Das ist was sozusagen über die, ja, das eine ist sozusagen die ostdeutsche Seite, die ostdeutschen Biografien, ja.
Yeah, so on the one hand, they are particularly East German biographies or stories, but on the other hand, they are universal because we all have feet.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about the idea of them being particularly East German stories. I read one review where it had said that the book followed in a particular East German literary tradition, that it was the tradition about validating everyday life, and that tradition stems back decades in East Germany. Is that something that you feel is true about your book?
Ich weiß nicht, ob ich das jetzt ganz genau verstanden habe. Über die spezielle Art der DDR-Literatur, über Arbeit, über das Normalen des Alltags. Ja. Da gibt es eine Tradition und offenbar stehe ich in der, aber auch das war mir nicht so bewusst. Es ist einfach so passiert und geschehen beim Schreiben. Vielleicht, also was ich gelernt habe in dieser Zeit oder was ich vielleicht schon in mir hatte und aber jetzt dann einmal ausprägen konnte, dass der Beruf des Schriftstellers eben nicht von sich aus höher oder wertvoller ist als der Beruf zum Beispiel der Fußpflegerin und dass es eben auch nicht von sich, also an sich schlechter ist, in Marzahn zu wohnen als im Grunewald. Vielleicht ist das etwas, was mit den weniger ausgeprägten sozialen Unterschieden in der DDR zu tun hat, dass ich das in mir habe.
Katja was saying there is this tradition, but that she wasn't aware of being part of it, other than that sort of she feels there's, or has learned or feels that there's nothing, you're no more special as a writer than you are as a chiropodist. And the craft of the writer and the craft or the skills of the chiropodist, one shouldn't be valued more highly than the other. And another thing that she thinks is perhaps related to growing up in East Germany, that in the GDR and former GDR, there are less socioeconomic strata or differences, that there isn't such a big difference whether you live in Marzahn or in leafy Grunewald.
Can I ask you what sort of reaction you got when the book was published in Germany from people in Marzahn? Because I presume they were happy to give you their opinion as to what the book was like and what they thought of it.
Ich hatte viel Freude, als das Buch erschienen ist. Meine Kunden haben sich sehr gefreut. Sie waren auch sehr stolz, dass sie und ihr Leben ohne Häme und ohne Überheblichkeit erzählt wird. Ich habe sehr viel Pralinen und Blumen in dieser Zeit bekommen. Und es kamen auch andere Leute, die gar nicht in unseren Laden kamen, also gar keine Kunden waren und haben sich gemeldet und haben sich gefreut. Es gab einen, der nicht ganz so zufrieden war, der auch im Buch vorkommt und sich sehr spät auch erkannt hat. Das ist Herr Peach. Wenn Sie ihn vielleicht kennen, dann, oder wenn Sie es mal lesen noch, werden Sie wissen, warum. Aber auch Herr Peach hat sich dann schnell wieder beruhigt.
So the clients of the salon were delighted, thrilled to pieces. She got loads of flowers and bottles of wine and presents. Everybody was really proud of the book. People who weren't clients of the salon at all came just to congratulate them and say how proud they were. And there was really only one client who also you would recognize from the book, if you've read the book, is Herr Peach, who not unsurprisingly had some misgivings, but he settled down. But mostly, Katja was saying, the people were really happy and proud to be for the book to portray Marzahn, without any cynicism, without any superiority, but they felt they were really proud of it and happy.
I want to ask about the prize now and about what it means to both of you, and there are two sides to that. Obviously, one of which is financial, and one of which is about profile and about what that does for both of your careers. Maybe Jo, I'll start with you on that.
It's remarkable. I think that as validation of my work as a new translator, I couldn't have ever wished for anything better, and to be standing in the shoes of Frank Wynne and Daniel Hahn, who've won in previous years, and Margaret Costa, I'm truly humbled. It's remarkable. On a financial level, again, I feel a little bit odd because I don't really hugely need that money. So some of it will go to something good. I'm working on a plan.
Okay. Katja?
Also ich freue mich sehr über das sehr, sehr viele Geld. Und ich werde oft gefragt, was ich denn damit tue. Die Leute denken oft, die Schriftsteller haben, wie viele andere Menschen, ein regelmäßiges monatliches Einkommen. Das haben die Schriftsteller nicht. Deswegen machen die von solchen Preisgeldern auch selten Kreuzfahrten oder Flüge zum Mond, sondern sie leben von dem Geld, und das kann ich jetzt wunderbar über mehrere Jahre und mein nächstes Buch schreiben, ohne nach dem Geld gucken zu müssen und ohne Aufträge annehmen zu müssen, die zur Finanzierung meines Lebens irgendwie gemacht werden müssen. Ich kann einfach ein neues Buch schreiben, völlig frei. Und, ach so, erstmal ja.
Katja was saying that for her it's a wonderful, it's amazing to have lots and lots of money, but unlike other people, writers don't have a regular monthly income, so it's money like this is not something that she's going to splurge on a cruise or fly to the moon. She's going to, it will be her income, and it will finance her next book. It means she can work on her next book, and she doesn't have to take on any commissions that would be just for the money.
Und dann gibt es natürlich noch die Seite jenseits des Geldes. Und da kann ich nur sagen, dass ein Buch, das den Berliner Ortsteil, den Ostberliner Ortsteil Marzahn im Titel hat, außerhalb Deutschlands, also auf internationalem Parkett, jetzt solche Anerkennung erfährt, das ist für mich und ich glaube auch für alle Ostdeutschen und Ostberliner und für meine Landsleute aus dem Osten, die seit 30 Jahren sich innerhalb Deutschlands ganz schön zanken, um wem was gehört in Deutschland. Und es ist ja einiges schiefgegangen mit der Wiedervereinigung. Das ist einfach ein kleiner Triumph, und der ist nicht nur für mich, sondern für für uns aus dem Osten.
So the other aspect of the prize is that it means that Marzahn, the name of this suburb, which, as she was saying earlier, doesn't have a great reputation, but this is now, on the title of a book that has won a major award, and it's going to be in bookshops all around the world, and it means that it's a little piece of East Germany, former East Germany, and East German history, and validation of all the people who grew up there and who live there. And there's been an awful lot of, since reunification, a lot of fighting over who owns what. And this is something just really good that's come out of. of everything for, and that East Germans or people who grew up in East Germany can be really proud of.
I wanted to ask maybe both of you if either of you were conscious of the effect that this book had on people during lockdown, because a lot of people sought out things that made them happy during lockdown. They sought out books that made them feel potentially better about themselves or about the world, because everybody needed a break from what was happening all around us. And certainly that worked with me with this book, and people have been discovering it ever since. Are you both aware of the effect that it might have had on people during lockdown?
Sag du erst, ja, ich weiß nicht, habe es auch nicht ganz, was der Effekt beim Lesen für die Leser ist.
Das Buch während Lockdown, dass Leute sich Bücher ausgesucht haben, die eher positiv waren.
Ach so, ja. Sag du erst.
Okay, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, for me, I did most of the translation during that big dark winter lockdown when it was really grim and I had the children at home and they were upstairs in their rooms trying to do Teams lessons, and it was a really miserable time. So to be able to retreat into this wonderful world of kindness and love and care was...
And tactility.
Yes, it was a really special time, and it brought on some amazing conversations. I remember going for our daily walk that we did, and talking to my teenage daughter about her self-image as a result of the chapter about the teenage daughters that Katja used to look after. And I managed to find out that my daughter was entirely happy with her body image, and it was a really wonderful moment that I would never have had without Katja's book. And I think there was that, it still had a hangover. I think by the time it was launched in the UK, that COVID was getting over with. But there was that still element that people wanted cheering up. And yes, it's grown. It's been one of those things that people have read it, they've bought it for friends, friends have brought it for friends.
There is a lot of that goes on with this book. There is a lot of pressing it into the hands of other people. And to be honest with you, I'd threatened for many, many, many years to go to a chiropodist, and I'd never done it until I read Martin Mon Amour. And then I did it for the first time in my life. Because from reading the book, it made seem like such a perfectly reasonable thing for everyone to do, and I could allow my feet to be seen by someone else, and it made.
And was it as lovely as?
It was. Well, it wasn't as lovely. No, it was less fun and a lot more clinical. But
I think there is a difference from my research. There's a difference between German chiropodists and chiropodists over here, that it is more clinical. And I think you do the nice massage and the lovely smelly
I got
lotions.
no lice massages, none of that. It just did. Maybe, and we were going to allow you to ask questions. If anybody has questions, we have a microphone. We'll get it to you in just a minute. Maybe just to ask how you feel about, or if you are conscious about following in a line of authors who have won this award. Everybody from Orhan Pamuk to Colm Tóibín to Michel Houellebecq to a list of people in front of me, Hertha Müller, who have all won this award over the years, and that now you are part of that line of writers.
Yeah.
Did you get that?
Yeah. That's a good answer. That's a perfectly acceptable answer. Can I ask what both of you are working on at the moment, if anything, or what you're both doing?
You want to go first, or shall I?
Woran wir im Moment arbeiten.
Ja.
Wie gesagt, ich habe ein neues Buch auf dem Schreibtisch, also ich arbeite an einem neuen Buch. Mir wurde oft nahegelegt, sofort Martin Mon Amour Teil 2 zu schreiben, weil die Kassen so schön klingeln, weil es ein Erfolg ist. Ich habe mich dann dagegen entschieden, weil ich das nicht, also es ist vielleicht auch nicht wiederholbar und ich wollte mich auch nicht selber langweilen, ich wollte auch nicht die Geschichten wiederholen oder so ein bisschen, man schreibt sowas nochmal, aber etwas schlechter. Deswegen schreibe ich jetzt etwas ganz anderes. Es hat zu tun mit meinen Jahren zwischen 30 und 50 und ich versuche herauszufinden, wieso ich da am Anfang jung und am Ende alt war und wie das passieren konnte. Und es ist ein bisschen die Geschichten meiner Kunden in dem Marzahn-Buch. Es ist sozusagen ein Blick hinter die Kulissen, was eigentlich in dieser Zeit genau mit mir passiert ist. Und da geht es um die Liebe und um das Kind, das groß wird. Und ich hoffe, dass auch da Leute vielleicht etwas von sich wiederfinden. Aber wie gesagt, es ist noch nicht fertig.
Katja's working on her next book, and a lot of people said to her, you know, why don't you write Marzahn, Mon Amour, Part 2, or the sequel? And she, you know, because it was doing so well and lots of money coming in, and I'm sure the booksellers were all happy and agents. And anyway, she decided against that, and she is writing a book which is kind of exploring what happened in her own life between the age of 30 and the age of 50, and that in Marzahn Mon Amour you can kind of see behind the scenes a little bit what was going on in her life. So this book would be more about how suddenly from when she was young at the age of 30 she's now 50, and the child has grown up in the meantime. Anyway, she's still working on it, so we shall wait and see.
And also being 50 is still young. Let's not knock that. Jo?
Well, I'm doing something quite different at the moment. I'm translating some non-fiction. It's a massive doorstop. It's a 350-page non-fiction history of morality since the dawn of man. And it's a little bit bigger than my brain is. It's been a challenge. I've had to go to the British Library and research quotations from Kant and Schopenhauer and Nietzsche. And it's got to be done by the end of June, so I'm going to kind of hurry back and get on with it.
So all of this award ceremony stuff and all of this is just distracting you
it's been
from...
really annoying,
from an
really annoying. Yeah.
Job.
Yeah.
I thought as much. Okay, I'm going to give the opportunity for questions. I'm actually also going to take my... These are brand new reading glasses and you're blurry beyond the front row. Oh, hello, you're all here now. Oh, this is great. Now I can actually see you in reality. Who has a question? Who would like to get us rolling? It's always the first person. There's always one who's just going to assist all of us. Jackie, you're wonderful. We knew that anyway. Can we get a microphone here in the front row? Thank you so much. To Jackie.
So Marzahn Mon Amour was one city, one Berlin, and we have a one Dublin, one book here. So I just wondered, what was the Berlin reading project like? Was it bookshops or libraries, or were you involved at all with doing events?
Nee. Berlin liest ein Buch und hier war One Dublin. Ja. Also ich habe schon rausgefunden, dass es hier einen Monat ging. In Berlin ging es nur eine Woche. Und ich war da aber täglich unterwegs und habe unglaublich viele sehr kreative Beiträge, Musik und Installationen und Lesungen und also ganz viel Verschiedenes haben sich die Bibliotheken und Buchhandlungen und auch Lesekreise einfallen lassen. Und ich durfte da überall vorbeischauen und mich freuen.
The Berlin One Book program is just 1 week, so it was a helter-skelter of events, and Katja went to a lot of them, and there were readings, but also music and installations and reading groups and library events and all sorts of things, whirlwind, but just 1 week, so she's very impressed that we've a whole month.
Aber mir fällt noch ein, wir hatten da einen Radiosender, mit dem das zusammen gemacht wurde, und die haben von den Hörern das ganze Buch einlesen lassen, jeder Hörer, also man durfte sich sozusagen bewerben und jeder einen Satz, und dann haben sie aus diesen ganzen Sätzen ein Hörbuch der Hörer von Radio 1 gemacht. Das war eine ganz tolle, aufwendige Aktion.
Oh, that would be a nice one for RTE. So the radio channel in Radio 1 in Berlin did an audiobook where people could write in and say, I want to read a sentence, and they were given a sentence, and all these sentences were then put together as an audiobook. It's a great idea.
That would be an amazing thing for RTE to do in terms of more book content on broadcasting channels in this country. Can I ask you just before, and I will take another question from you. You were also, the book was also the book at bedtime on BBC Radio 4, which is a very, very big deal. Did you? Who found out about that first? How did you know about that?
I think that was down to Stella and James at Pyrene that sorted that out. I mean, I didn't have any involvement in it. Did you? You didn't.
Es geht immer gleich bei uns. James und Stella sagen es Joe und Joe sagt es mir. So ist das da auch gewesen.
Yeah, so it happened the same way as the good news about the award that Jo heard about the BBC radio program, and then she told Katja.
Who's next? Who's got another question for me? Right, you're very brave. Wait till we get your microphone. The bravery needs to be heard.
Sorry, I just want to say thank you very much for being a ray of sunshine during the COVID period, during the lockdown. There were so many of us, someone like me who has been an avid reader all my life, but during the COVID, I just couldn't read because everything was just so heavy. And then a friend came over from the UK and gave me your book. And it was like the cloud lifted. I mean, the impression, the everyday life of these people, it just make everything better. So I just want to say thank you. And then our book club recommended it last month, and I was like, I read it already last year. And I didn't even have to read it again because I still remember every chapter, every 4 pages, 5 pages, because they were so short. But then they leave such an impression on me that I could remember everything. It's just thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, normally I stop people who just want to say something and have no question, but you're 100% right. Who else has got a question for us? Oh, somebody at the very back. I can see you all the way up here.
Ich kann vielleicht in der Zeit sagen, dass ich mich sehr darüber freue, was Sie gesagt haben. Es ist aber so, dass nur mein Glücksgefühl, was ich dort empfunden habe und wie ich selber aus meiner Krise durch diese Begegnung mit den Leuten und durch mein Leben als Fußpflegerin herausgefunden habe, dass sich das wahrscheinlich einfach nur übertragen hat im Schreiben und im Lesen.
Susan, thank you very much for your kind words, and it's lovely to hear how much pleasure the book gave people, but that in a way she was just transmitting how she found happiness or well-being or contentment through working with the clients, and that's what comes through in the book.
Okay, we do have somebody at the very back. Hello.
Dankeschön. Also meine Frage ist, also, was inspiriert Sie? What's your inspiration? Und vielleicht auch den zweiten Teil, würden Sie jemals ein irisches Buch schreiben? Die Iren sind auch großartige Geschichtenzähler. The Irish are also good storytellers. Would you ever write an Irish story?
Was mich inspiriert? Alles, was ich sehe, alles, was mir geschieht. Es ist meistens ohne Plan und ohne ohne großen Plan. Was mir geschieht und was mich bewegt und beschäftigt, das findet dann manchmal auch auf einer Seite und wird aufgeschrieben. Mehr ist es nicht. Und das mit dem irischen Buch, das muss ich mir eben noch überlegen, weil ich war jetzt zwar gerade 3 Monate hier, aber ich müsste dann noch mal länger kommen.
I think what inspires her is really what she sees, what she experiences, what's preoccupying her at the moment, and what she observes. And she will sometimes write it down on a page and see where it goes. And in answer to your question about writing an Irish story, she said she's only been here for 3 months. She'd have to come back for a lot longer the next time.
Okay, do we have somebody else? Remember, there we go, in the centre. You'll do. Sorry if there's anybody over here, I'll come to you in a minute.
Thank you. I'm just curious about your sense of morality writing this. Have you had a different perspective in respect of morality having written this book? Because it's about this particular neighborhood.
Würden Sie mir das kurz übersetzen? Einen moralischen Standpunkt? Fragen wir nochmal, was er meint. Aha. Oh.
That's what I thought.
Nee, ich habe keine vorgefertigte moralische Auffassung und ich habe beim Schreiben versucht, und das versuche ich eigentlich immer, die Dinge nicht zu bewerten, sondern sie genau zu sehen und zu beschreiben und sie für sich selbst wirken zu lassen. Mich also möglichst spät mit einer Meinung einzumischen in das, was ich beschreibe.
Katja was saying she didn't have any particular morality or moral standpoint in her perspective in writing the book, that she tries to write things without any value judgments, just describe things as she sees them, and to kind of keep her own opinion out of it until she feels she really has to express an opinion.
Okay, do we have anybody else? Over this side, is that it? Have I seen all of our hands? We've got, I knew there was one more I was missing. There you go.
Ja, ich habe noch eine Frage an Frau Oskamp. Ich wohne in Dublin seit 5 Jahren und ich glaube, es gibt auch hier Bezirke der Stadt, die den gleichen Vorurteilen und der gleichen Häme und dem gleichen Spott ausgesetzt sind. Glauben Sie, dass so eine Geschichte wie Marzahn, Mon Amour auch einer Stadt wie unserer gut tun könnte?
Okay, Rachel, you may have to translate the question for everybody else before Katja gives us her answer.
The question, I think, is that in Dublin we have lots of districts or suburbs that might have an equally bad reputation. The man who asked the question said he's been living in Dublin for, was it 5 years? And so the question for Katja is, could she see a story like Marzahn, Mon Amour for Dublin? Are you asking, would she write it, or just do you think we could do with something like Marzahn, Mon Amour for Dublin?
Ich hoffe, dass das auch für Dublin vielleicht eine gewisse Gültigkeit hat und es ist ja immer gut, wenn man seine Urteile oder seine Ansichten zwischendurch überprüft und vielleicht auch mal auf den Kopf stellt. Ich habe gelernt, während dieser ganzen Zeit, als dann das Buch erschienen ist, sind ja auch sehr viele Journalisten in unseren Laden gekommen, weil sie dann gucken wollten, ob ich echt bin und ob das alles stimmt. Sie waren halt irgendwie interessiert an diesem echten Leben. Und manche haben auch eine Fußpflege gewollt, weil sie darüber dann auch besser schreiben konnten in der Zeitung. Und dann habe ich gedacht, auch wenn Medienmenschen und bedeutende Literaturmenschen ihre Schuhe und ihre Socken ausziehen, sind sie eben genauso wie die Marzahner und an den Füßen sind dann irgendwie alle gleich. Also das gilt vielleicht auch für Dublin.
Katja was saying when the book came out and was a big success in Germany, a lot of journalists and media people came to the salon and to see if it was for real and if she was really working there. And some of them asked or made an appointment and had a foot treatment to see what that was like, and Katja was saying, when it comes down to it, when you take off your shoes and socks, everybody is the same. Everybody has feet, and that's true for Dublin as it is for Berlin.
Und auch Redakteure bedeutender Tageszeitungen haben Fußprobleme.
And even the editors of major newspapers have problems with their feet.
I would love to see that happen here. I'm going to take one more question from the front row.
Thank you. The book, as you say, comes from an East German perspective and maybe an area populated mainly by people who lived in East Germany. And we hear of tension still between people who were in the East and are now part of the unified Germany. And I'm just wondering, was there any reaction to people maybe who are dismissive of East Germans nowadays to your book?
Do you mean West Germans being dismissive?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ich habe es verstanden. Ob es unterschiedliche Reaktionen aus Ost- und Westdeutschland gab. Ja, erstaunlicherweise wenig. Also ich habe vielleicht, wenn ich im Osten Deutschlands Lesungen gemacht habe, war es ein bisschen mehr noch ein Heimspiel, also mit Heimvorteil. Aber wie gesagt, eben auch die Westdeutschen haben Füße und deswegen ist es auch im Westen ganz gut angekommen, glaube ich schon. Und das ist es vielleicht auch, dass diese Dinge dann eben auch verbindend sind. Und vielleicht auch, dass die Westdeutschen 30 Jahre nach der Wiedervereinigung besser sehen können, dass die Wendeverlierer, wie es ja lange hieß, vielleicht auch einen Erfahrungsvorteil haben, weil sie in zwei Systemen gelebt und überlebt haben.
Surprisingly little difference in the response between West German audiences and East German audiences in West Germany and former East Germany. Katja had a lot of readings, and she thinks possibly because the stories and the problems and feat are, universal, that this is something that everyone can relate to. But also she's saying in her experience that in some ways people who lived in the former East Germany prior to reunification have a kind of an advantage in that they were considered the losers of reunification, but that they actually have an advantage now in that they have a resilience that comes from having lived in two different systems, and that they can maybe cope with the knocks better.
Before we finish up for this evening, can I ask you to please put your hands together for our translator, Rachel McNicholl, who's done an extraordinary job tonight.
Danke.
And perhaps one more time we can say thank you and congratulations to the winners of the 2023 Dublin Literary Award, to Katja Oskamp and to the translator, Jo Heinrich.
Thank you.
I have been told, for those of you who don't have copies, there are copies of the book signed, and they are over in that corner over there. Is that the one we're talking? So for those people who are wandering in that direction, just in the off chance you haven't read this wonderful book as of yet, thank you so much for coming along tonight, and enjoy the rest of the festival. Cheers. Thank you.